Tonya Caruso. Welcome to Comcast Newsmakers, shrinking the size of the state legislature. Joining us in our studios this half hour, State Representative Daryl Metcalfe. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today.
Good to be with you again.
Big idea, been floated before. Let's talk about your plan that's on the table.
Well, we have a bill that my committee has considered, which is House Bill 153. It's a bill introduced by the Speaker of the House, Sam Smith, out of the Punxsutawney area, and a bill that we expect to see pass the House of Representatives and hopefully pass the Senate. It's legislation that, since it does change the Constitution of Pennsylvania, would have to pass 2 consecutive sessions of the legislature, and then it would be put before the voters for their consideration. So this is the first step to moving us in that direction of actually reducing the number of legislators in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives from 203 to 153, so a 25% reduction in the size of the legislature.
25% reduction.
On the size of the House, rather.
How is it figured out? Where would these cuts come from? How does that work?
It would happen after the next redistricting in 2020. If it passes 2 consecutive sessions and the voters adopt it, then the next redistricting is when it would be implemented, and then districts would be drawn into 153 equal districts rather than 203 as we just did during this last redistricting process.
And let's talk about what you think some of the advantages are of doing this.
I think the greatest advantage is actually setting an example for what government should be doing across the board at the state level. We have a budget that has exceeded the ability of the taxpayers to actually pay for it. We're operating right now, as we ended the year of 2011, with a shortfall of almost $500 million. So as we come into February and as we enter budget negotiations once again this year, the legislature will be debating whether or not spending should be reduced, as I'm calling for, or whether taxes should be increased, as some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle continue to argue for.
So how did you come up with these numbers of reducing it? Some people have argued maybe instead of taking away actual bodies, it should be a part-time legislature. It should be a part-time House. How did you decide on these numbers, and why do you think that works best?
Well, this bill was proposed by the Speaker of the House, and it was his idea to reduce from 203 to 153, an idea that I agree with and that many of my colleagues agree with. And as I said, ultimately, I believe that reducing the size of the Pennsylvania House by 25% will set an example for what we should be doing to the executive branch. We expect that we would save millions of dollars by reducing the size of the House of Representatives by 25%, but reducing the executive branch by 25%, we could save billions of dollars. So it's and then reducing the size of the judiciary. The judiciary is 1,000 plus judges across the state of Pennsylvania, whereas the Pennsylvania legislature is 253. So with a large judiciary branch, with a very bloated and overweight executive branch with the amount of spending that they do, I think that this would set a good example for the direction that we should move state government, and that is reducing spending and reducing the size of government overall.
Are there any concerns that individuals might lose representation?
I don't believe so. I know some have expressed that, but when you look at the way that my district has grown over the course of the last 10 years and the previous 10 years, when we get to the redistricting phase, which just occurred at the end of last year, when we redistrict, we'll have new districts coming into this year. And when I first entered the legislature in '98, we went through the same, of course, in 2000, 2001. But each time that we do the redistricting, because of the growth in my area, I've seen my district numbers as far as constituents represented approach very close to where ultimately 153 representatives would put us at in the round figure for constituents being represented. And the representation that my constituents receive, whether I'm at the end of a 10-year cycle or at the beginning when it's reduced, is still the same representation. I'm still able to get out to the community meetings and have the town hall meetings and interface with my constituents in the office and on the street. So I think the representation would be very similar to what we have now, although we would have less people in the legislature.
All right. Big issue. We thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today. Do come back. We can talk about this and some other things. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You're welcome. I'm Tonya Caruso. Thanks for watching Comcast Newsmakers. We'll send you back now to HLN.